afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Brendan Leopold and you are watching World Today. The Palestinian death toll from the ongoing Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has risen to 37,658 victims. According to Palestinian health authorities, during the previous 24 hours, the Israeli army has killed 32 Palestinians and wounded 139 others, bringing the toll number of injuries to 86,237 since the Palestinian-Israeli conflict broke out in October 2023. While Palestinian media outlets said at least 51 people have been killed as a result of continued Israeli attacks across the Gaza Strip. The health authorities also warned a severe shortage of medicines and medical supplies. The statement called on international institutions to quickly intervene and provide the needed medicines and medical supplies to save the lives of patients and injured people. In a separate statement, Hamas accused the Israeli government of continuing to challenge all international laws, customs and humanitarian values by deliberately targeting innocent civilians and committing the most horrific massacres against them. Ukraine and Russia have exchanged 90 prisoners of war, each in the biggest swap between the two warring sides in almost 5 months. Moscow and Kyiv have carried out over 50 prisoner exchanges since Russia invaded Ukraine more than 2 years ago, despite ongoing hostilities and both sides accusing each other of derailing talks. The exchange deal was mediated by the United Arab Emirates. Russia said that 90 of its servicemen who were in mortal danger in captivity have been returned from territory controlled by Ukraine. Its defense ministry said the freed servicemen will be airlifted to Moscow for treatment and rehabilitation. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that 90 Ukrainians had returned home and had vowed to work for the release of each and every one of them. The last swap between the two warring sides was at the end of May, when they exchanged 75 prisoners each. In February, both sides said they swapped 100 prisoners each, their first exchange since Moscow accused Kyiv of downing a plane carrying captured Ukrainian soldiers. Meanwhile, Russia said Tuesday it was blocking access to dozens of European media outlets, including AFP websites, in response to the European Union slapping broadcasting bans on several Russian outlets last month. The announcement comes after the European Union unveiled a ban on 4 Kremlin-controlled media outlets in May, accusing them of being instrumental in bringing forward and supporting Moscow's Ukraine offensive. Russia denounced the bloc's move as politically motivated and said it had been forced to take mirror and proportionate countermeasures. Its foreign ministry listed 81 websites in 25 EU countries and some that operate across Europe that were being banned. According to the foreign ministry, the ban will restrict people inside Russia from accessing the outlet's online resources and broadcasting materials. It, however, did not provide any details. European Commission Vice President Viera Jourova called the ban nonsense retaliation. Russia said it would revise the restrictions if sanctions on Russian media were lifted. The European Union, EU, on Tuesday kicked off accession negotiations with Ukraine and Moldova, setting the fragile ex-Soviet states on a long path towards membership that Russia has tried to block. The landmark move signals, in particular, a vote of confidence in Kyiv's future at a time when Moscow has momentum on the battlefield, almost 2.5 years into the Kremlin's invasion. Ukraine and later Moldova lodged their bids to join the EU in the aftermath of Russia's assault in February 2022.
Today marks an important step in our journey towards EU membership. Our country, having diligently completed all the recommendations, is officially commencing accession talks with the EU. I would like to start by expressing my heartfelt gratitude to our teams in Chisinau and Brussels for their tremendous efforts in making this possible.
The meetings with Ukraine and Moldova will set off a process of screening of how far laws in the countries already comply with EU standards. Once that is done, the EU then has to begin laying out conditions for negotiations on 35 subjects. ranging from taxation to environmental policy. Russia's war in Ukraine has reinvigorated a push in the EU to take on new members after years in which countries, particularly in the Western Balkans, made little progress on their hopes to join. A U.S. judge freed Julian Assange on Wednesday in a plea deal that ended years of legal drama for the WikiLeaks founder, long wanted by Washington for revealing military secrets. Assange pleaded guilty in a U.S. court in Saipan in a plea bargain that will leave him a free man after years of legal drama. The 52-year-old admitted to a single count of conspiracy to obtain and disseminate national defense information in the courtroom in the Northern Mariana Islands, a Pacific U.S. territory. The judge sentenced him to 5 years and 2 months in prison, with credit for the same amount of times he spent behind bars in Britain while fighting extradition to the United States. Assange has long been wanted by Washington for releasing hundreds of thousands of secret U.S. documents from 2010 as head of the whistleblowing website WikiLeaks. He was released Monday from a high-security British prison, where he had been held for 5 years while he fought extradition to the United States. The Northern Mariana Islands was chosen because of Assange's unwillingness to go to the continental United States and because of its proximity to Australia. Assange will now fly to Canberra in his native Australia. The Australian government said his case had dragged on for too long and there was, quote, nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration. Police opened fire on demonstrators trying to storm Kenya's legislature on Tuesday, with at least 5 protesters killed, dozens wounded, and sections of the parliament building set ablaze as lawmakers inside passed legislations to raise taxes. Kenyan President William Ruto vowed to take a tough line against violence and anarchy on Tuesday, after protests against his government's proposed tax hikes turned deadly and demonstrators ransacked parliament. Mainly youth-led demonstrations had been largely peaceful as they grew over the past week, but chaos erupted in Nairobi on Tuesday. Crowds threw stones at police, pushing past barricades and entering the grounds of parliament. The military has been deployed to support police who fired tear gas, water cannon, rubber bullets, and according to a rights group, live ammunition against protesters. Outrage over proposed tax hikes and simmering anger over a cost of living crisis fueled rapidly growing demonstrations that have caught the government off guard. The United States appealed for calm, and 13 Western nations, including Canada, Germany, and Britain, said they were, quote, especially shocked by the scenes outside Parliament. Still to come, Rahul Gandhi appointed as India's opposition leader in Parliament. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is World Today. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's chief rival, Rahul Gandhi, was appointed to lead India's opposition in Parliament, a key post that has been vacant for a decade, signaling a reinvigorated challenge to government. The decision is significant because in the past 2 parliaments, Gandhi's once mighty Congress party did not have enough seats in the legislature to qualify him for the post. Gandhi, 54, defied analysts' expectations and exit polls to help his Congress party nearly double its parliamentary numbers, its best results since Modi swept to power in 2014 and rescuing it from the political wilderness. Congress Party General Secretary K.C. Venugopal said Gandhi would be a bold voice for the common people of India and ensure the government is held firmly accountable at all times. Gandhi is a scion of the dynasty that dominated Indian politics for decades and is the son, grandson and great-grandson of former prime ministers, beginning with independence leader Jawaharlal Nehru. Parliamentary regulations require the opposition leader to come from a party that commands at least 10% of the lawmakers in the lower house. Haitian Prime Minister Gary Conille vowed on Tuesday that the state will retake control of the country as a peacekeeping mission coming from Kenya arrived in the country recently. Although the intention is noble, however, the Haiti people are hesitant over the Prime Minister's pledge.
Personne n'a doute sur l'objectif là. L'État va reprendre charge. Il va affirmer l'autorité pour tout le monde qui vit sans cœur sauter dans le pays. Je demande nous tous pour nous marier ceinture, pour nous prendre conscience que ça ne va pas être comme ça. Nous devons prendre responsabilité devant l'histoire. Et nous devons voir l'autre image de Haïti. Haïti pas comme ça. Et Haïti pas carré comme ça.
The first contingent of Kenyan police arrived in the Haitian capital to launch a long-awaited peacekeeping mission in the Caribbean country that has been ravaged by gang violence, even as deadly protests back home prompted doubts. The mission was first requested by Haiti's previous government in 2022. Support waned, leading to Conille's predecessor's resignation in early March. He had traveled to Nairobi to secure Kenyan support as violence escalated in Haiti. The gang wars have now displaced over 500,000 people and nearly 5 million are facing severe food insecurity. Armed groups, which now control most of the capital, have formed a broad alliance while carrying out widespread killings, ransom kidnappings, and sexual violence. Regional authorities in Brazil declared a state of emergency as the Pantanal, the world's largest tropical wetlands, faces wildfire. State of Mato Grosso do Sul declared the 6-month state of emergency. The surge of fires before the peak of the dry season had raised alarm, which extends into Bolivia and Paraguay and is home to a rich array of wildlife, including the world's highest density of jaguars.
O negócio é que esse ano chegou mais cedo, né, o fogo. Chegou mais cedo a seca, ventania, calor, fogo. Geralmente chega em agosto e a gente está no mês de junho, né, final de junho, e já estamos vendo esses episódios aí.
Experts say the blazes are a result of a harsh drought and deliberate fires set to expand agricultural land into the forests that burn out of control. According to environmental satellite data from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, 627,000 hectares of the Pantanal have already gone up in flames since the start of the year. The Pantanal experienced its worst year of fires in 2020, when 30% of the wetlands were affected. And so far this year, there have been 33% more fires than seen over the same period in 2020. In the United States, heavy rain and debris triggered flooding at Minnesota's Rapidan Dam, threatening homes and other structures in as many as 40 counties on Tuesday. Drone footage filmed showed one home perilously close to toppling into the floodwaters near the Rapidan Dam in southwest Minnesota. The footage also showed damage and sustained flooding in and around the Rapidan Dam in Blue Earth County. The dam, which is 147.4 kilometers southwest of Minneapolis, is at risk because of debris that has accumulated along the Blue Earth River after days of rising water levels.
My family house, where I grew up, is threatened by the force of Mother Nature, the water, and you're not stopping Mother Nature.
The county officials said erosion on the West Bank is ongoing and the water is still flowing around the same site. They also pointed the dam is still intact and there are still no current plans for a mass evacuation. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission are still monitoring the dam and assessing it. Authorities have not issued evacuation orders for the area, but have urged locals to remain alert. Pakistan's port city Karachi continued to reel under intense heat, with residents trying to cool off on Tuesday. Volunteers set up stalls on the streets providing water and sugarcane juice to help people keep cool as they travel. According to Regional Meteorological Center, the temperatures reached 41.3 degrees Celsius due to humid conditions. The office also forecasted the hot weather is expected to continue for the next day. They even called the phenomenon a partial heat wave. Temperatures last month rose above 52.2 degrees Celsius in Pakistan's southern province of Sindh, the highest reading of the summer and close to the country's record high. As per record, the heat wave has claimed at least 20 lives and hospitalized numerous others due to heat stroke in Pakistan. A team of international scientists believe the extreme temperatures throughout Asia over the past months were made worse, most likely as a result of human-driven climate change. A SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket lifted off on Tuesday, carrying the final spacecraft in a series of geostationary weather satellites. The launch is expected to improve forecasts of solar flares, coronal mass ejections, and huge plasma bubbles that can crash into the Earth, disrupting power grids and communications. The U.S. Space Agency announced the rocket carrying the satellite into orbit took off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center at 5:26 p.m. local time. The mission that is known as GOES-U, or Geostationary Operational Environmental Satellite U mission, is a collaboration between NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. It will be the fourth and final in a series of observing satellites that have tracked hurricanes and tornadoes, monitored climate and sea surface temperature, air quality, and even meteor detection since 2026. Currently, such observations are carried out by a satellite launched in 1995, which should cease operating within 2 years. Orbiting 22,236 miles, equivalent to 35,785 kilometers above the equator, the satellites match the speed of Earth's rotation in order to hold their positions over specific regions and provide continuous coverage. Major shock in Group D as Austria take top spot. More on that in our sports segment. Don't go anywhere. And kicking off our sports segment this afternoon with football, Austria spurred a major shock in Euro 2024 after grabbing a 3-2 victory over the Dutch to wrap up a last 16 berth and relegate their already qualified opponents to third place in Group D. Austria drew first blood early on as their team were rewarded for an enterprising start when Donjel Malen inadvertently fired into his own net. However, the Netherlands drew level less than 2 minutes after the restart as Austrian midfielder Florian Grillitsch lost the ball in midfield before Cody Gakpo cut inside and finished off a rapid counter-attack. Just as the Oranjes started to get on top, Austria reclaimed the lead as Romano Schmid's header found the net via a deflection of Stefan de Vrij on the line. Memphis Depay struck with an excellent touch and volley to equalize again after a good header down by substitute Wout Weghorst. But one of the games of the tournament was not yet done, and Marcel Sabitzer hammered home in the 80th minute to put Austria in front for the third time. Ralf Rangnick's men now have a match against either Turkey, the Czech Republic or Georgia to look forward to as they bid to reach the quarterfinals for the first time. The Netherlands will play the winners of either Group C or E. In another fixture, Group D that is, Kylian Mbappe scored a penalty on his return after breaking his nose, but Robert Lewandowski's reply meant France and Poland drew 1-1 in their final group game. The result in Dortmund, combined with Austria's 3-2 victory over the Netherlands at the same time, saw France finish second in Group D with 1 win and 2 draws. France will now head to Düsseldorf for a last 16 tie next Monday against the runners-up in Group E, which could be Belgium, Romania, Slovakia or Ukraine. Wearing a mask to protect his injured nose, Mbappe rolled in a spot kick to put France ahead early in the second half after Ousmane Dembélé was brought down. It was Mbappe's first ever goal at a European Championship and the first scored by a France player at this year's tournament. Yet Lewandowski, Poland's all-time top scorer, who was himself starting for the first time at Euro 2024 after a thigh injury, equalized from a penalty at the other end 11 minutes from time. His first kick was saved by Mike Maignan, but Lewandowski was allowed a retake as the France goalkeeper came off his line before the ball had been struck. France's result is all the more significant as they are now on the same side of the draw as Portugal, Spain and Germany, which they would have avoided by topping the group. In Group C, England manager Gareth Southgate was met with boos and thrown cups by his own fans, despite topping Group C, as Slovenia also progressed to the knockout stages thanks to a goalless draw in Cologne. The Three Lions were already assured of a place in the last 16, but can expect more criticism after failing to improve on the underwhelming performances. England will have to wait until Wednesday's final group games to find out which of the 4 best third-place teams they will face in the last 16. Southgate made a statement with his team selection, resisting the calls to make mass changes, as Conor Gallagher replaced Trent Alexander-Arnold in the only alteration from the opening 2 games. If the England boss was looking for a reaction by showing faith in the other 10 who have started all 3 matches in Germany, he was left disappointed. Slovenia are now 9 games unbeaten, which included beating Portugal 2-0 in a pre-tournament friendly. In another match, Denmark progressed to the knockout stage of Euro 2024 after a goalless draw with Serbia on Tuesday, which allowed them to seal second spot in Group C. With Denmark and Slovenia both finishing on the same points total and goal tally, second place was decided on the basis of European qualifiers ranking. Having never beaten Denmark, Serbia coach Dragan Stojkovic backed his charges to change history against the 1992 Euros champions. The Danes, semi-finalists at this competition in 2021, knew a draw would be enough to qualify but needed a win while hoping for an England loss to avoid meeting hosts Germany in the last 16. However, a draw between England and Slovenia prompted Denmark to face Germany in Dortmund, while England will return to Gelsenkirchen for a meeting with a third-place side. Slovenia will take on the group winner, while Serbia were eliminated as last in the group. Moving on to tennis, Emma Raducanu brushed aside Sloane Stephens 6-4, 6-love to advance to the second round of the Eastbourne International on Tuesday in a battle between former US Open champions. Stephens, who won the US Open in 2017, broke first for a 3-2 lead but failed to hold serve for the rest of the match. Raducanu, after saving 2 break points to hold for 5-4, broke the American for a third time to seal the first set and then sprinted to the finish line, completing victory in 76 minutes. Raducanu, who won the US Open as a qualifier in 2021, has slipped to 168 in the world after an injury-plagued 2023 season. Raducanu will next meet world number 5 Jessica Pegula in the second round. In another match, British number 1, Katie Boulter, who defeated compatriot Raducanu on the way to retaining her Nottingham Open title this month, overcame Croatia's Petra Martic 6-1, 7-6. Boulter, 27, who was beaten by Martic at the same stage 12 months ago, cruised through the first set and then battled back from 5-1 down in a 10-second set tiebreak to progress. She will face 2017 French Open champion Yelena Ostapenko in the last 16. Head on to motorsport. 8 times world champion Sébastien Ogier will miss the Rally Poland after being taken to hospital following a collision with another car while preparing for this week's event. The team said none of the 4 people involved were seriously injured, but Frenchman Ogier, 40, would remain under medical supervision overnight. Ogier and co-driver Vincent Landé were driving along part of the course in a regular car as part of pre-event reconnaissance. Tomasz Markowski, a police spokesman from the northern Polish city of Olsztyn, said the accident happened at around 9:30 a.m. local time on a gravel road. The other car was driven by a 69-year-old with a 67-year-old passenger. Markowski said the drivers were transported to hospital by helicopter while the passengers were taken by ambulance. He said all were conscious when paramedics arrived at the scene. Ogier is competing only part-time this season in selected events. He is 4th in the championship standings, 30 points behind Hyundai Series leader Thierry Neuville of Belgium after winning in Croatia and Portugal. That's it from us. A recap of a top story. Ukraine and Russia exchanged 90 prisoners of war, since the biggest since 2022. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM for more. Or you can always stream us online on RTM Click's website or mobile app. Till then, I'm Brendan Lepol from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Goodbye for now.